As a child, I remember spending many a Saturday morning watching the spandex-filled extravaganza known as the Super Friends. In that cartoon, the members of the Justice League were portrayed as perfect paragons of virtue, their evil super enemies' virgins notwithstanding. That isn't the case, however, in the game Injustice Gods Among Us, a fighting game for the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii U that emulates the grittier material seen in some of the DC comic books. The title may allude to them as gods, but in reality, including alternate ones, these characters are a lot more human than divine. The story is rooted in a premise frequently debated by comic book aficionados throughout the years. What if Superman basically becomes a bad guy? Such a scenario is fleshed out in one of the better story modes I've seen in a fighting game, which honestly isn't a genre that's really known for turning out the best of plots. Yes, some of the scenarios are a bit far-fetched, but that's sort of par for the course when you're dealing with comic books. I especially like the banter between the characters, which should make fans of the Justice League cartoons feel right at home. My personal favorite? Smile!
I am smiling.
The fighting system itself is quite solid and should at least feel somewhat familiar to fans of NetherRealm Studios' Mortal Kombat game. One difference is that Injustice relies primarily on 3 attack buttons of varying strength. It also switches to directional blocking, which I honestly prefer over pressing a button to block. As someone who primarily plays Japanese fighting games, Injustice's controls feel more intuitive than Mortal Kombat. The ability to easily pull off basic chain combos and the fact you only need to press 2 buttons to perform a super attack makes this game more accessible to newcomers or non-experts. More advanced gamers, however, still have plenty of tools at their disposal. You can actually view frame data if you want to get really technical. Then you've got your air juggles, block escapes, bounce escapes, and an assortment of counters. I must say that there's nothing quite as satisfying as finishing off bad Superman with a Batman cape counter. And stay down! Other features include clashes where you wager a certain amount of your super bar against an opponent. Winning or losing grants perks or penalties and can turn the tide of battle when timed right. Players can also use the environment to deal mayhem on foes, which can be something as simple as using objects against an enemy. In multi-tier stages, however, you can send foes crashing all over the place until they land on a different area. Personally, I really like the second Arkham quote-unquote tour, which features a rogues gallery of Batman villains just beating the snot out of any poor sap who gets smacked their way. Granted, some of these environmental smackdowns seem a tad unrealistic even for a comic book-based game, particularly when you've got Harley Quinn sending Doomsday to space. Injustice tries to explain this off with the use of a magic Kryptonian pill that augments the strength of lesser beings, so there you go. Other single-player features add to replayability by allowing you to unlock all sorts of extras. You've got the objective-based Star Labs mode, where you need to clear various conditions to progress to the next stage. Then you've got Battle mode, which typically has you running a gauntlet to unlock endings and other stuff for each character. Besides couch multiplayer, folks who want to test their mettle against other players can also jump online. Wii U players can also play off TV on their tablet, though matchmaking with friends on Nintendo system is admittedly an issue. Although the game looks good overall and has nice graphic touches like suit damage, it also has some visual quirks. Here's one that makes Superman look like he's wearing a not-so-super skirt. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Character facial modeling up close can be hit and miss, with Wonder Woman looking a bit mannish at times. Folks who prefer Japanese-style fighters may not be completely sold on the game's Mortal Kombat feel, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Players who want to just focus on pure fighting also might be turned off by the stage interactions and use of objects, especially when playing online, though you can just turn those off. Lastly, loading times can be a bit long as well. Overall though, I like the fast-paced feel of Injustice, and actually prefer it over the last Mortal Kombat game, which was a good game in its own right. It's certainly different from the fighting games I'm normally used to, but it still can be a lot of fun, especially once you get the hang of it. Plus, any game where Aquaman actually does not suck also gets props from me. This is Jason once again, and thank you for checking out my video review of Injustice Gods Among Us for the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii U.
Wakey, wakey!